And we're live. Education is one of the cornerstones of the founding of a great race. It is critical, absolutely critical, to serve as a foundation for the youth, to give them something to look back on their people to admire. And I've noticed, particularly in the last century, it seems at least here in the United States, education, although it is so readily available, the content and the quality of the education seems to have deteriorated rapidly through a lot of different there's many reasons for this, of course, but it seems like students who used to be educated knew how to speak Latin, Greek, some of these other foreign languages. They had a very broad knowledge of the classics that our race has produced, literary classics, I should say. And unfortunately, this has been tarnished and it has been eroded. But today, I have a special guest, my friend Brant Danger, who has single handedly created a resource for parents that wish to homeschool their children. He has set up a website called School of the West. I'm also joined by my friend Hanz, who has some content that he has produced on there that is on the website as well. So, without any further ado, how are you doing today, Brant?
Doing very good, thank you. The weather's starting to get a little bit cooler.
Oh yeah,
more,
I bet.
More like a proper European weather. I'll just put it that way.
Oh yes, I'd say it's been a hot summer where you are.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes, it's always hot.
Yes, I would imagine so. How are you doing today, Hans? This is, I think, your third appearance on the show. How are you doing?
Third time's the charm, right? Yeah, I'm going. It's going good here. I'm very happy. I've actually really been looking forward to do this stream, and well, maybe to begin in the sense of, I hope that everyone who's listening here, even if you do not have children of your own, but you know parents, if you end up appreciating what you're gonna hear in this stream, you might want to reach out to other parents or people that you know are parents. It's this is for our young, this is for our children, and there has not been given enough attention to them so far, in my opinion, as is. Let's work towards changing that, and that's what I want to. That's what I wanted to start with.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the children, they are the future, you know, and what we've seen over the last, especially basically, you could say since the 1960s, is this slow degradation in the quality of education, sadly. But I want to thank you both for coming on here. Brant, I know we've planned this for probably 2 or 3 months. I apologize. It's that's just something I've learned is like I will contact someone and then it might be months down the road before I actually get to do a stream with them. Anyways, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Brant, feel free to. Do you have a background in education by chance? Because your website is it is so professionally done. It's beautiful, actually.
Yeah, so one of the jobs I've had in my life is a public school teacher. And
Okay.
I've taught in a few states in the West, and I've taught in Alaska, and I also taught over in East London.
Really?
And I've actually taught people from 4 years old up to people in their 60s that got laid off of jobs and they were getting retrained when I taught in a university for a little bit. Specifically, where my main focus was on like 5th grade, 6th grade, and then I also taught some high school science. So
Yes.
the way that I approach education is from the point of view of being trained in the actual techniques of pedagogy. How do you stand up in class? How do you present the information? How do you meet state standards? How do you develop a curriculum when you're supposed to teach things, but you don't actually have the material there yet? How do you have to
Yeah.
do your own research? Like when I taught science, there were things I was supposed to teach. I taught earth and space science, but I didn't have any material given to me, pretty much. So I had to
Yeah.
go back and research everything on my own and figure out, here's how I'm going to lay everything out. This is from the simplest to the most complex. This is how far we're going to go each week. And when you create worksheets, or you do some writing some text, or you have assessments for students, it has to be on the level that they're at. The questions have to be valid. They have to be relevant. I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of training that actually goes into being a teacher, to being a competent teacher. Unfortunately, right now, there's so much craziness, like anti-white craziness in the schools, that we see these insane teachers, and a lot of them are, I would say, have the feminist bent to them as well. And they garner a lot of the attention. So teaching gets a bad rap. It gets a bad name. But I would say it's deservedly so, because you have a lot of people going into teaching because they want to work with little kids, or maybe they have an ideology that they want to push while they're in public schools. You have that on one hand. On the other hand, you got to realize that these are government funded schools. So what the government wants at a federal level is going to trickle down into the state level. And it's actually the departments of education at each state which sets the policies in general, what has to be taught by law. And then it goes down to a county or a district level. And then they turn around and tell the schools what they have to teach. And then you're going to have your own superintendent of your district, and then your principals, and then they can also alter things as well. And over time, like Southern, like you said, our education has seriously deteriorated. Part of that has to do with our modern living, where kids are growing up being entertained constantly. A lot of kids now, by the time they get into high school, they're so addicted to their cell phones that they can't put them down more than a few seconds. They're constantly trying to look at them all the time. They have short attention spans. Plus, we'll just say that the powers that be that control our governments, they don't want high quality students. They don't teach critical thinking in schools. They teach memorization. Some of the memorization is actual facts, and some of it is outright lies, and some of it is omissions of lies. So you have this social conditioning which is going on. Early on, you have some valid teaching, reading, writing, here's some math, here's some basic skills, here's some PE, you can have music class, etc. So you have some valid teaching that's going on, and then you have some indoctrination that's going on. And when there is something that's true and also false, and they're wedded together, I call that the rat poison. It's like the rat poison model, because you want the rats to come over and start eating it because it tastes good, and then they get to the poison. So that's the way that I look at what our public schools, how they're bundled right now. And that's also to a certain extent in the universities. So when I was in public school, I didn't start off where I am right now with the knowledge that I have right now, but I start seeing these little lies or these little inconsistencies over time. And I thought, well, why is this on this worksheet? Why is this in this textbook? This doesn't make sense. Or I know that this is wrong. Why am I supposed to teach this? So I would teach that, but I would also say to the kids, kids, we talked about primary sources and we talked about secondary sources. We talked about the difference between fact and opinion. And I'm also here to tell you guys that one of the things that I always do with my classes, I would always tell them the truth. Okay. So if I taught them something, or if I read something to them that was in a book that I thought was wrong, I would say, now here's an example of something that's not actually true. And this is coming to you from adults. Now, you guys as little kids, you have to believe your parents right now, because they're taking care of you. They're keeping you alive. So you can believe what they're saying. And you sort of need to believe what I'm saying as well. And your pastor, your coach, your doctor, whoever, you're supposed to believe them. But there's going to come a time when you're going to grow up where you have to decide what's true and what's not true. All right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to read this thing to you, and I'm going to give this to you as a statement. And then I'm going to tell you something else. And I want you guys to think about the two things that I just told you. Which one makes sense? Which one doesn't make sense? Now, as kids get older, they can start to develop those critical thinking skills. When they're younger, they're not ready for that yet. So that's one thing that really irritated me about teaching the youngsters, is they're extremely impressionable. Yes. You can get them to believe anything early on. So if they tell kindergartners that you're a boy, but you're a girl, or you're a girl and you're a boy, or you can switch day to day, they're going to go right along with that if no one helps them out. So there's a lot of things wrong in public education, and I knew that I wanted to do something to counteract what was going on.
Yes.
And in my particular case, I quit the school district, and then I spoke out against the school district after I left. And not only did I point out things in general with public education, but I talked about the specific corruption at my school district. So not only do we have this anti-white insanity and this transgender insanity and this white guilting insanity, but with a lot of our schools, we also have this this money allocation that goes away from the classrooms, and it's going more towards an ever expanding administration. So the administration, like in a district office, they keep creating more and more jobs so more people can leech off of the system. So more money is going to people that are actually unnecessary, and the people who could use more money, or if they could put more teachers in more classrooms because they have so many students, they don't do that. So there's even corruption stacked on top of the anti-whiteism in our public schools. So to me, I think it's unsustainable. Money is still getting fed into it because they pull taxes away from people because it's state funded, it's not privately funded. But at some point it's going to break down because it's built on a lie.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That was a great introduction there, Brant. I really like that. Absolutely. I can certainly tell you have a background in education. How many years did you teach in the public school system altogether?
I started my student teaching in 2006, and then I took a total of 3 years off between then and now, doing different jobs, like going back and working as like a programmer and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So what's the math here?
That'll be about 13, 14 years.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Roughly. Yeah. Now, some of those was working as a substitute teacher in a district where I didn't have my own class every day. Also, when I was over in London, they have what's called supply teaching. So it's like substitute teaching, except when you substitute teach in America, you're not expected to know what the heck is going on.
Exactly.
You can do that without being a trained teacher. Over in England, you have to know what's going on. You walk in there and they hand you the schedule for the day, which they call the times table, and you're expected to just start instantly and teach the class like you're a native teacher there. Yeah. So I've learned a lot.
Oh yeah, I'd say, this is something I've not told many people, but when I was younger, particularly when I was a sophomore, like a freshman and a sophomore and a junior in high school, I actually wanted to go into education because I had a really good school experience, you could say. I went to a very small, rural public school in the northeast corner of Tennessee. And back then, I finished high school back in 2005. And there was nowhere near which this is a very conservative area of the country, of course, very conservative, one of the most probably. But there was nowhere near the anti-white indoctrination that you see currently going on. Honestly, I would, in a way, I would like to know like what children today are taught back at my school that I went to, because I'm just curious to see how it has changed. But yeah, when I was younger, I wanted to get into education. I also wanted to be a baseball coach. I wanted to turn my rural high school into a Tennessee state baseball powerhouse. But my senior year in high school, I just kind of changed my mind. And when I started college, I chose something completely different. So, but sometimes education has always intrigued me, just telling stories, teaching. I certainly admire your work, Brant. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And maybe it's worthwhile to bring something up about transgenderism. Now, not many people know this, but I have studied, not specifically that topic, but I'm not going to go into the details of it all. I have had some schooling that included me needing to know about, what is now commonly known as the transgender phenomenon. And it's from what I understand out of it, it's pretty dark. It's that to describe it, its original name is gender dysphoria, which is a mental illness that, as far as I do not think it appears so much naturally as poor genetics or anything like that. It is entrained mental illness. It stems forth from abuse. It stems forth from a severe confusion uh, in regards to sexuality, but also um, to put it in the proper terminology, it's like disassociative and both sexually dysphoric. There is something that does not click in these people's minds. They do not see their own bodies as themselves. They see their bodies as something separate from themselves. If you then add someone particularly vicious who has no qualms with hurting children in the most horrific manners imaginable, because it really is on this level, that you would disrupt their soul even, you can mess with them by saying, oh, you're not telling males that they are girls and vice versa is one of these simple ways to do it, if you will. And it goes also to different levels where these people do not see one of the reasons why they subject themselves so easily to all kinds of drugs, to all kinds of surgery, is because on some level in their minds they do not realize that their body is themselves. They simply do not see it that way. That is the dysphoria that takes place. The sexual aspect is, again, it's sort of the one of the early clubs, the emotional clubs that an abuser can use on a child that way. I figured, that I'm gonna keep it there, but I think it was worthwhile to bring this up. It should be called gender dysphoria. Transgenderism is just this flowery name to make it all acceptable and somehow probable. No, nature, it's an unnatural thing, and these people do not necessarily do it out of malice. A lot of them really are so confused.
They
And
are. I mean,
and these
yeah.
people need medical, they need actual care. They do not need surgery. They do need someone to help them
They've probably
with
been
their mental
abused.
state.
They've probably been abused. It's like you said.
Yeah.
I heard you mention, disassociative a second ago, and that reminded me of a lot of the stuff that I had read about the horrific Dutroux affair that happened there in Belgium. And, it talks about, how children that are abused so severely, they have MPD, which is multiple personality disorder,
That's
and DID.
dissociative. Yeah.
Yeah, DI. It's roughly the same thing, and it is a product of horrific abuse. And there's even, and unfortunately, this is awful to say, but when I was researching all of that, there have been foundations set up to try to discredit any sort of MPD or DID research.
They have been doing that also with gender dysphoria. They're actively
Yes.
right now trying to rewrite it. Like they did with inflation and all of that stuff. They're trying to rewrite, well, not only history, not only whichever term is inconvenient for for anti-whiteism, they're gonna try to rewrite it, and it's for people to really hold on to the actual meanings. Because
Yes.
if you in a certain sense steal someone's meaning of a word, it opens it, it makes it more difficult for people to describe what's going on who did not beforehand know what's going on. And that is also how you poison the next generation. In many ways, it's even important that you look at yourself and consider that your own generation, you yourself, might in many ways also have been verbally handicapped that way. I'm going to be it on a on a tangent perhaps, but
It's
it's
okay.
really important to realize this. And coming back to School of the West is that that is, in my eyes, one of the early steps towards curing that, hopefully, and at the very least avoiding those who have not been abused this way from ever having to go through that. I'm just throwing it out there, but yeah.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. We like I said, we've got an hour and a half, 2 hours to talk, so we can go off. We can explore all the tangents y'all want to.
Mm.
Um, let's see.
I wanted to throw in something maybe
Okay.
towards Brand. It's my personal thoughts from observation. I think you might have something to add to that, Brand. That with a modernist public schooling system, how everything is so regimented, and that children are just supposed to listen to a teacher, uh, has become a form of abuse in and of itself. Like yeah, it's understandable that if you have a classroom full of children, that you need to give some direction so they're not running all over the place, but that it has again twisted, corrupted in a way where now children are their creativity and their even a certain aspect of their courage is being slowly but surely eroded so that they're more docile, if you will, by the time that they're 18, 20, what have you. Maybe you have something to say on that.
Yeah, I do have something to say on that. Okay, so I can also give an opinion based on what a teacher does. So let me explain what that looks like from the from the teacher's point of view. Okay, why that happens, and then I'll talk about why I agree with Hans there. So as a teacher, you are, based upon the school district that you're in, you are more or less responsible for the achievements of the students in that class, for them meeting all the state standards in reading and writing, history, social studies, math, science, etc. So you might be, your performance can be looked at, you can be raked over the coals. In some states like Alaska, where districts have considerably poor performance over time, an entire school can be replaced and the administration can be replaced if the kids aren't meeting certain standards. Plus, besides meeting the certain standards, what people don't realize is that, let's say, for example, there's a mom and dad. You have a little kid. He's a nice kid. He's kind of a little bratty, but he's a good kid. Now, you put him in a class with 26 other kids, he's going to be the biggest brat that you've ever seen in your life, because they're all going to egg each other on. There's going to be chaos. They want to play because they're little boys or they're
Yeah.
little girls, and we're not brought up to be in little square rooms under fluorescent lighting. That's unnatural. So it's an unnatural environment to begin with. But then there can be a shitload of pressure put on a teacher to have the performance of the kids increase or meet certain criteria over time. Now, one thing that's really critical, again, that people have no idea about, they have no clue at all. You have to have very good classroom management. That means you have to have a lot of rules. You have to have structure. You have to have the kids not just talk whenever they want. They have to be able to listen. They have to be able to think a little bit. They have to be able to follow instructions, because you're not talking to one or two kids. You're talking to a whole big group of kids. They're all on the same schedule with all the other classrooms in that same school. They all have to go into class, out of class, go to the bathroom, go to eat, go to lunch, go to PE, turn your work in, clean up your desk. You have to have it extremely regimented. And again, that's artificial. But in order for the teachers to do their jobs, they have to treat the kids that way. Now, as the school year progresses, and if the classroom is generally, let's use the term, disciplined enough to where they can stay on task, you can lighten up the rules a little bit. You can have, an extra party for whatever, another birthday party, or you can have a little bit of extra recess, or you can take them out for another recess, or you can give them more fun assignments, or you do more group assignments, or more group work, or you do projects. So you can change things up. And as teachers become better and better over time, you can make things more interesting, and you're more clever, and you can be a little bit more hands-off in the way that you structure each day and the way you manage the behavior of the kids. But you have to have the behavior of the kids managed. So from one point of view, you have this little boy who, for the entire evolution of our species, we didn't sit down in little chairs in front of a desk under light and listen to someone drone on and on for hours every day and have to do work. So that right there, that's a bad model. And on the other hand, if I'm a teacher and it's my job to make sure that these kids behave, that they get their work done, that they don't screw around with other kids. Because when a kid starts screwing up in class, yeah, he's being creative, but what is he doing? He's messing up the learning opportunities for all the other kids, and I'm responsible for that. So I cannot let that happen. So you have all of these conflicting forces acting on each other inside of public school. And that's why it's not the best model. And what I would do if I was in charge of public schools, besides changing what's taught, is I would have, especially for the early grades, I would have separate schools for girls and separate schools for boys, because they have different needs, they have different energy levels, they learn at different rates, they're interested in different topics, and with certain age ranges and with different races, there's more or less of a differentiation between there. So the reason that I'm talking about this, train students for factory work originally, you can have kids get trained to bells, or you can have them work on a tone, or if the teachers are going to be right on time all the time, like when the district that I was in, you have to look at the clock all the time. So really good teachers, they know what time it is all the time.
Yes.
Really good teachers, they don't look like they're good teachers. It looks like they're doing nothing, but they're doing a whole bunch of things all at the same time, and they're making thousands of tiny little decisions every day, constantly, and you don't notice it. And that's why I think that teachers that are actually good, people don't understand how difficult that is. You have to have a huge array of skills in order to be a teacher. You have to be proficient at a whole bunch of different things. You got to have your time management. You've got to know all the subjects you're teaching. You got to know the child psychology. You got to know all sorts of things. You have to deal with an idiot administration. You have to deal with other teachers. You have to go to stupid meetings and listen to how white people have been mean to little brown kids forever. And that's why you have to do these special things in your class now. I think all of this crap you have to deal with. So I would have separate schools for boys and girls, schools for boys, a lot of outside time, a buttload of outside time, half the time outside running around doing stuff. Okay. And then start teaching them some relevant skills inside. So there's a lot of ways in which our modern system is not ideal. And because of that, it's not going to be sustainable. It can be forced because, like I said, the money is there for it. It's enforced by law, but intrinsically, it's a model that's not going to work forever. Now, the way that it used to work in the past is we had a much more disciplined, respectful student body that placed more of an emphasis on studying, and you did not have problems in school for the most part with children's behavior and not studying, all of these things. But as you get larger populations, you get your non-whites with a different biospirit shoved into all the same classes together. You get this anti-white propaganda that you're now supposed to teach in the classrooms. There's no way it's going to work. It doesn't work.
Yeah. I was going to ask you real quick, did you see a lot of the anti-white propaganda during the time in the states that you were teaching in? Did you notice it a whole lot, or?
There wasn't very much of that because I wasn't teaching in big cities. I was always teaching in the West or in Alaska, and teaching in smaller places because I specifically chose small places because after the last time I was in London in 2007, and that's the last city that I lived in. I decided I'm not going to live in another city. That's just not going to happen. Like we're done with that. We're done with that nonsense. But I have seen slowly over time this anti-white material creeping in, and part of it also was just my awareness of actual events of history, because it became important to me to actually understand, well, what actually happened during these events during the War for Southern Independence, World War I, World War II, these other conflicts that we were in militarily, okay, these economic policies, what's actually going on? Because, I've heard what's in the movies and I've heard what's in the news, but what are the primary source materials? What are the materials from the other point of view? So as I became more aware of what was going on, it was easier for me to see the mistruths in the material that I had. And I think that the anti-white stuff where I am now, it just really started ramping up probably since like 2019, 2020 with all that nonsense.
Yeah.
And when I would point it out, of course, it was like pushing against a wall. Like, for example, in my state, during February, they say, Black history is the heart of our history. And Black people had absolutely nothing to do with this state, absolutely zero, nothing. They could
No.
say Martians is the heart of our history, and it's bullshit. And they said Black history is the heart of our history. So in this month, we're celebrating this and this, and here's these resources. And I wrote to them and says, what do you mean Black history is the heart of our history? That doesn't make any sense. Please explain that. And of course, they didn't write back to me because there was no explanation. It was just bullshit.
Yeah.
So you get this stuff pushed down from the state level, and then that kind of gets squeezed out to the districts, one way or another.
Yes.
So even though you might be in a small district that doesn't want to have anything to do with it, eventually there can be pressure brought down from the top because the money flows down from the top.
Absolutely.
For example, in my state, starting either last year or this year, it became state law that you have to teach a certain event that supposedly happened in Poland in the 1940s. It's state law. It's not like you can debate this, you can talk about it. Like, no, you have to teach this now. So this is how this anti-white nonsense gets pushed down.
Yes, absolutely. It seems like all huge social changes occur first in urban environments, and then they spread outwards to the rural areas. This is something throughout history. I wanted to ask too, how was your experience teaching in London, East London? How was that?
It was horrible. It was horrible because it was just insane where I was. It was to my eyes, to my American eyes, it was a very busy, complex, dysfunctional place. You had people from all the typical countries that you would expect to find immigrating into London.
Yeah.
And the teachers were good. The school district, the way they were set up, was good. I would consider them on a bar above American schools as far as how professional they are. But a lot of the kids they were just nuts. There was just way too much crap going on there. Like, little Muslim boys were getting into fights every single day. And this is back before I knew where these kids were coming from exactly. Like, later on, I realized like, oh, this kid from this country, and this one from here, and this one from here, and this one from here, and this one from here. And even the white kids there in East London were insane. They were just nuts. Like, they would do things like, the double-decker buses. They have these fantastic drivers, and they're driving all the time. They've got all these routes, and they would do crap like they would kick the soccer ball out in front of the bus and then run out right in front of the bus on purpose to make the bus slam on its brakes. Or, half the time there's going to be a fight on the bus. Kids would just start fighting. Or people are trying to get on the bus without paying constantly, and they start kicking and banging the doors. It's just like, it was an environment of chaos.
Yes.
It was kept under control, but this chaos was just right under the surface, there all the time. Yeah. It was just nuts. And I remember one time I was on a bus, and I was watching this guy, some Arabian guy, and I thought, I wonder if he's a suicide bomber or like, I don't know. I'm just looking at him on the bus going home at night, because I would teach all day and then would take another bus to the gym, and I'd work out, and then I'd be dead tired, and it'd be 8 o'clock at night, and I'm riding the bus home, and I thought, I don't care if he is a suicide bomber and they blow the bus up now. Like, I don't care. Like, everything sucks so bad here. And I thought, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I need to get out of here and get back to the States. Like, I'm going, like, within a week I was gone. Like, no, I'm out of here. Like, this job sucks, so bad. Plus, part of it as well was I didn't know where I was going to teach every day. So I'd get a call at 6:30, then I'd have to get at my map of London, and then I'd realize, okay, can I ride my bike here, or do I ride the bus? And if I'm going to ride the bus, what routes do I get on, or do I have to get on the metro? Like, how late am I going to be when I show up? And then I have to run to the class.
I was also going to say, and then you had the burden over there in England, where if you're like I heard you mention that earlier in the stream, if you were a substitute teacher in England, you have to pick right up where the normal teacher, the regular teacher, left off. And I mean, that is insane to me. Here in America, if we had a substitute teacher, like when I was in high school, it was just practically movie day. We're just watching a movie for the class. We can take it easy, you know, cut up just a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty depressing. That's a very bleak picture. And this is back in 2007, you said, correct?
Yeah, so that's
Oh,
before
wow.
the big waves of immigration.
Wow. Hans, you got anything you want to throw in? Anything you'd like to ask relating to
There were a
this?
few things that passed my mind and then they slipped away again. So
Oh,
amazing of me.
it
Uh,
happens, believe me. Don't worry.
yeah, I'm trying to think of what I wanted to bring up. It's gonna take me a moment. Sorry, guys.
Oh, it's okay. Ain't no big deal. If it comes back to you,
Well,
go ahead, Brant. Go ahead.
yeah, so I wanted to say a couple of things from what Hans said earlier. So while I'm talking, maybe Hans can forget again what he was about to say. So when he was talking about the transgenderism, another group of people who actually don't have type of mental issues that are now claiming to be transgender are white kids and other kids that are non-white who want to be cool, who want to be accepted. So white
Social
kids,
pressure,
in order
yeah.
to get off the bottom of that pecking order, they can be transgender or homosexual, whatever, and then they get to move up a little bit. They can be a victim class as well. So that's one way they can do that. And then you have other kids that they just don't fit in. They haven't had a lot of friends. They're confused about life, and if they quote become gender fluid, and I know these kids, some of them talk to me. They talk to me first because they trusted me before they talked to anyone else, and I supported them individually on an individual basis because they were good kids. But I also understand at the same time, why are they doing that?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
very true.
Yeah, so they're not going off and maybe they're not doing drugs or smoking
Victim
yeah.
Olympics, basically. That's what I would consider it. Absolutely.
It's a sort of peer pressure, I believe you could call that. I mean, that
Well,
is something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, some of it is peer pressure, Hans, but some of it is these kids that just don't fit in. They're like
Right.
what they would call the oddball kid or whatever. They're a loner. They don't have a lot of friends. How can you be special now? Hey guys, I'm gender fluid. Oh, you're gender fluid. Oh, that's
they get all this
interesting.
attention.
Tell me more about that. Okay.
It makes them feel special.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that's bad. I just say I understand why they're doing that psychologically. And that's been presented to them as an option, all this transgender shit in front of their face, where before they wouldn't be doing that. If someone wanted some attention, they'd be doing something else. But now that's the popular thing to do.
In a certain sense, would it not be worthwhile to consider that this is also a weaponization of children? We kind of turn them into some sort of child soldier in service to anti-whiteism, because this will destroy Western culture and maybe even every culture worldwide altogether while we're at it. I get that sense that because these people, if they grow up believing that this is how you get through life, and at some point it's going to be presented to them like, no, you were encouraged to promote a mental illness, and you need to, you cannot, this is going to destroy not only your this might actually mess up your mind completely, but it will also be dangerous to society as a whole. Like, it will completely fracture apart if everyone turns out this way. But these people are going to be very resistant to anyone that tries to go back to what is healthy and natural, right? So they are child soldiers in a sense. They're not necessarily they're not given any actual weapons, but their minds are weaponized against even their own health, if you will.
Exactly. They are.
And that is, well, obviously criminal. There's no two ways about that. It's, I mean, they even have their flag, haven't they? Kind of like some sort of unofficial nation with that rainbow.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's, I mean, it is, it is uniform. It is a uniform way of going about it. There's, but it's, for a lot of people that might be difficult to see because they expect that something invasive always does so with a uniform. That is to say, they come in with weapons and tanks and that sort of thing. It's not always how it works.
Yeah, it's like all the symbology that they use, all these new, like they update their flag every couple of years. It seems like it looks like a rainbow tapioca abortion to be honest. I mean, it's just horrific.
You know, the way I look at that is, yeah. Anyone ever seen a puddle of oil in the sun, and there's like this
Yes,
color scheme?
the
That is
sheen.
that flag. It's
The
basically
sheen.
an oil puddle.
Except it
what
ain't
people
even
are looking at.
an oil puddle's prettier in my opinion, honestly. At least it kind of. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just horrible, you know. I just wanted to ask quickly. I know this is a cliche question, but I always like to ask my guests this: when did you sort of become racially aware, Brant? I mean, you can take a few minutes to answer this, or I know it's a cliche question that's often
I think
asked,
it's
but
actually.
When I was in the 3rd grade.
in the 3rd grade,
Yeah. Yeah. First and 2nd grade, I was in Oklahoma. I was in a little town in Oklahoma, and then my dad went into the military.
yeah,
And so at 3rd grade, I spent part of 3rd grade in Texas, part in California, and then part in Arkansas. So he had to go around for training. And I remember in the 3rd grade when we went down to school in Texas, on the playground one day, there's this black kid, and he says, "My name's Don." Like, okay, do you want to fight? No. What? Like,
yeah,
why would I fight? I don't know. And then in the 3rd grade in California, we were doing some finger painting. The school in California was ridiculous. It was just crap. I mean, even when I was in the 3rd grade, I knew it was a horrible school. I learned nothing there. And we were doing finger painting one day, and there was this little black kid in my class, and I said, "Oh, you didn't do the finger painting right." And I don't remember what he said, and I was pointing out to him, like, "This is what they told you to do, and you didn't do that." So his response was to punch me right in the nose. I thought, like, hey, that really hurts. So that continued later on when I went to schools on base. It wasn't that big of a problem because everyone's kind of in the same boat when you're in the military. But then when we went off base in schools that were like 30 to 40% black kids, then you run into that problem as well. So there was never really a time, from 8 years old on, that I was ever confused about any of that. And I'm completely floored every time I hear someone talk about their race realism moment, because I think, like, how in the hell did you not know this since the time you were a little kid? Like, how were you so ignorant for so long? It's just bizarre to me.
Well, that's just one of the things I was going to say. I went to like an all white school that I mentioned earlier. And a lot of kids. I mean, myself, I was sheltered from having to deal with other races predominantly. I think there was only like a couple of black adopted kids that went to my high school. That was it. There was a Mexican family, but everyone else was white. I think there's a naivete a lot of times, you know, among whites that perhaps grow up around all their own, especially here in the last few decades. Perhaps from I'm a millennial, so you know, racial tensions uh, wasn't necessarily they weren't as high as they were when I was growing up as they are today. Nowadays, it's just I don't know. I think what I'm just trying to say is I think there's a naivete among some of the white children that have grown up in high trust, say a lily white suburb. They're just too trusting. They're naive, you could say.
Yeah.
But anyways, is there anything else you wanted to add to your experiences, Brant? Or
Well, I want to say a couple of things real fast, so I don't want to spend a long time on it. So you're talking about these people growing up in their naivete. That's true. I think the white race is the most trusting and naive race on the planet, and white Americans are much more naive than whites in other countries. If you spend some time in some other countries for a while, and then you get on a plane and you're flying back to the States, you can look around and you think, why is everybody smiling and acting goofy and dumb? And then you realize, oh, I'm on a plane with a bunch of Americans now. We're back in this little naive, goofy little kindergarten that we live in America. And when you're talking about the white people that grow up ignorant of other races, the the ideas about the other races that they see on the movies and songs and TV, etc.
Exactly.
So they grew up watching the Cosby Show and they go, "Oh, look, black people are just like white people. It's just the color of their skin. That's the only difference."
Exactly.
So anyone who's mean to blacks, they don't know. So they don't realize that they're saying this propaganda that's been carefully crafted and it's put on television for a purpose.
Absolutely. Everybody, these naive whites think that every black is, Steve Urkel, Steve Urkel off of Family Matters. Didn't mean to make you get choked up there, Brant.
It's all right. Yeah, when I was a kid and I saw these movies and I saw these shows, and I just kind of took it in stride, and I thought, at some point they're going to start making realistic movies and they're going to make realistic TV shows. So I kept expecting to see that, and the realism never showed up. It was only propaganda. And so it took until 5 or 6 years ago when I started realizing what was going on that I thought, now I know why they never put any realism into TV shows or movies. They didn't want to. It wasn't about that. It was about this message. It was about this propaganda married with entertainment, because that's the most effective propaganda. When you're being entertained, you don't realize you're being propagandized.
You're being subverted.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
They slip that in there. That's really subtle, But yeah, that's, sometimes like in these circles, I made a video talking about this a little while back, but in these circles, I think some of the more racially aware whites are the ones who had to contend with a lot of diversity, perhaps having to grow up in an urban environment or, just growing up around the wildlife, as I like to call it. It makes them more aware. They know the true nature of things, while young white kids that may have grown up in a lily white suburb or their little gated community, or hell, even a really white rural area, they're a bit more naive. I mean, I got to say, I never had any conflict or confrontation with a black person until I went to college, because they just weren't around. But not necessarily my parents, but my grandparents, they were always pretty, I guess a leftist would say they were fairly racist. They were prejudiced. I mean, I was taught growing up, it's like, hey, go get you a girlfriend, but if she ain't white like you are, you better not bring her home. But anyways, let's see.
There is maybe also something worth mentioning in regards to TVs and any screen, any electrical screen. I only came across this recently, and unfortunately I can't really go into all of the details of it. But when a light shines in your eyes, you automatically, your mind goes into a suggestive state. That is, by the way, also why a lot of police officers shine a light in your eyes if they have a chance before they say anything. It's to sort of sedate you with light. And what is a TV if not, a box of light right in your face? That is something that is practically unknown. I only knew about it recently myself. It has a hypnotic effect to stare into a light. And that is, something that everyone should learn ASAP as far as I'm concerned. That also the people who came up with TVs knew this from the start.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the actors or whoever put the TVs together knew, but the funders or what have you, they had a very good sense of this. They know what they knew what they were doing from the beginning.
Sometimes I feel like we're not really all that different from moths. You see moths outside at nighttime, they're drawn to the lights, you could say, the street lights or whatever.
It's sort of comparable, I suppose.
Slightly.
But it's definitely important to realize that about your, for yourself and for everyone, let them know that, if you stare into a light, it makes you suggestive, and that softens your mind a little. If on top of that, indeed, you are and being entertained, your mind is just a wide open door. And that indeed, that European or that white naivety is a real thing. Have that tossed on top of it, well, got a problem, right? As we can see, how people, in how many ways our own people is turned against itself over the centuries. But I mean, no real point in going into that all right away. But another day, maybe. It's important to realize this. And there was something else I wanted to mention again. Dang it! I think it's getting late for me, guys.
Oh yeah, you're across the pond, so it's up in the evening for you now.
Yeah, it is.
Well, the other thing that I can add to what Hans just said is that from the research that the way that I understand it is we have not evolved. Our subconscious mind has not evolved to understand the difference between what we're looking at in quote real life and what we're looking at on a screen. So when we're watching a TV show or a movie, especially when we're being entertained, these images and sounds are going directly to our subconscious mind, and our subconscious mind is responding to that. So these people that have spent their entire lives being propagandized by the anti-white propaganda, they think that's reality. So when they hear someone say, "Oh, so and so is being racist," they just say, "Oh yeah, you're racist," or "There's a whole bunch of racist people everywhere. There's institutional racism. The racists are about to take over everywhere. There's a secret army of Donald Trump of these millions of
Yes.
racists." Well, they don't exist. They only exist in your subconscious mind because you watched all these shows that told you they exist. There's actually no proof of this anywhere, you freaking idiot. There's no proof,
No.
but you think it's real because you watch this fantasy stuff for so long and you're not a critically thinking adult. You can't go back and actually look at your opinions and say, where did these opinions come from? People don't do that. Unfortunately, most people are intellectually lazy for whatever reason. That's part of the reason why we're in the mess now that we're in.
I think you can throw. Yeah, actually, that's something that I wanted to mention. Is also through the modern schooling that we have today. This is more, I suppose, an opinion, although I can marry it to my personal experience, so it's a kind of anecdotal as well. Is that in my experience from when I was young, from when I went to school up until I finished, I get the sense that with every additional year, you get a lot of what is basically useless information thrown at you. You have to do all these little tests and what have you week after week for most of us. And at some point, you just get fed up with it. You get burned out, you get tired of it. And at some point, you just lose your curiosity in life in a certain sense. And that is also, I think, by design. I do not think that a child should be sitting on, in like what 40-ish hours a week in a classroom like that, doing endless, written tasks or whatever it's going to be. It's just not healthy. Most of that information, like if you're truly honest, how many people remember, every single thing from every A plus even or what have you? Do you still remember all of that if you would be asked again after, let's say, a week, a month, a year, 10 years? And if
Yeah,
the
and
answer is no, you're going to have to question again by yourself, is that, well, what have I been doing it for? I don't even remember it. And at the time itself, it was already, for most, pretty boring. So, but you wanted to say something, Southern?
oh, I was just going to say, it's like a lot of the education nowadays, I mean, even when I was growing up, it just seems to emphasize, rote memorization, unfortunately. Um, when in fact, I think the goal of education should be to teach young people how to think, to teach them how to think, critically, to teach them how
Creatively,
to make, yeah, creatively as well, not just critically. Absolutely, you got to be able to think outside the box sometimes. But yeah, anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think that was a good addition there. I hope, well, maybe it's worth going into. Well, actually, I haven't answered your question in regards to when I became racially aware and all of that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Should
Go
I
ahead.
get into that? Or I think for me, I really stuck out when I was maybe 16 or something like so, because that was also around the first time I was introduced into a multiracial environment, and I come from a background where I've seen my fair share of white anti-whites as well before that time, but in even if so, the people that have been the biggest stumbling blocks for me through life have always been those uh, who think that they were either, yeah, as anyone can see on my videos, I have like that typical look, blue eyes, blonde hair, which in and of itself triggers a lot of people already beforehand. I do not even think there is enough talk about that in society as a whole, but we'll have you big surprise. And that being one of the reasons is a lot of people always try to get them away, the whites, but it is the non-white anti-whites who really, immediately go to the physical intimidations and threatening, trying to gang up on you, while they do not even really know you. But I've literally had once, I had I had what was it again? It doesn't matter. Two non-white anti-whites come up to me. They see my eyes, they see my hair color, and they say, "Oh, you must be, the anti-white slur."
Yeah.
And these guys did not know me. I did not know them. That was for me. Well, here is also a thing, in addition to that, is like my family. I still have a war hero in my eyes, in my family,
Yeah.
who who was on the other side of the trench, if you will, from
Yeah.
from the uniform that they accused me of wearing. And I'm not going to go into all of that, but to me, that is an insult. That was an insult to my great grandfather in that sense.
Oh, yeah.
Great grandfather. So
Screw
I
them.
gave him a reply that I cannot tell you here.
Oh, that's
I stood up for myself. I can
good.
tell you that much.
You have to.
But that was, I've always remembered that, and that was really for me, personally at least, where it really clicked. It's like
Yes.
there's something about these people. They really have a hatred, for me and my own. They do not, and they will harm in the most despicable and cowardly ways. This is not only a rival, this is a dishonorable rival. And that's where it began for me, and for me, and that is at the age of 16 and onwards.
Yes.
I've that's where it began. I'm actually very glad I could share that. The thing that's
Yeah, I don't think you'd ever told me that story.
no,
And
I've
we've
never
been on
gotten
a
the
few
chance.
streams now. So, yeah.
So good that we got there then eventually.
Yeah.
I think that is though. I hope that it also will encourage a lot of young people who hear this, that you do not have to take any nonsense of them, but actually you're going to be stronger if you know the white positive lexicon than I was at that time. It does push these anti-whites off with just words.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw that in there as well. Via School of the West, you're also going to get a lot of that. And please, it doesn't even matter if you're young. You can be 30, 50, 70, even 90. It's worth to learn that as well. It's worth to look at School of the West for yourself.
Yes.
Definitely wanted to add that as well.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was what we would, we've been going for 57.5 minutes right now. So I figured we would take some time here and I would show you all the website that Brant has set up here. It's his project. He done this single-handedly. I really admire that. That's why we're here. So give me just a second and I will try to pull it up here. Give me just a second. Share screen, Microsoft Edge. All right. Are y'all able to see that now? Can you? Well, hold on. No,
not
it's
seeing anything myself.
Okay. Try this. Did that work?
Nope.
What?
That's it.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Nice. So this is Brant's website. I'm going to, if y'all want to watch the chat, I will just scroll down here. This is his website that he has set up. When did you get the idea for this, Brant? Because it's a beautiful website. When did you get the idea to set this project up? How long ago?
Probably about 4 years ago, when I was realizing that what I wanted to be teaching was not what I was allowed to teach in public school. And as I would think about what my druthers would be, it would be an actual physical school where I could teach the truth to kids. I could teach white well-being. We could do a lot more physical activities. I could teach critical thinking, group building skills, talk about our ancestors, all of our religions. What are the things that are important to us? What's happening to our people now, all of these things, without attacking anyone else, just about white well-being and useful, relevant facts, not like the stuff that we were talking about earlier, where Hanz says that he has to memorize a whole bunch of stuff in school. Nobody wants to do that, and it's not really healthy, and it's just a waste of time. So as I was thinking about this 4 years ago or so, during the COVID lockdowns, I was teaching high school, and so all the teachers had to teach from home for a little while. So I had some extra time on my hands because I only had to spend about 3 hours a day teaching and grading and doing that sort of stuff. And that was back before I was kicked off of Twitter. And there were some people talking about, like, we need to have our own schools. And I says, yeah, we need to have our own schools. I'm a teacher, so if someone starts a project or whatever, I can help you with that. And then a day went by and 2 days went by, et cetera. And I said, well, is no one going to do this? You're just going to talk about doing it? Because when you just talk about stuff, it doesn't happen. And I thought, well, I've got the time now to do this. And I can start putting some of the material together. And, Jason Kuna at least knew who I was. So when I started talking to him about that, he was able to get the word out on his show to get other people involved, like Hanz there. And so then slowly over time, I started buying the computer that I needed to do. I started, learning or relearning the software that I needed, figuring out, how to get the domain names. Where can I get a domain name that's not going to get taken away? Where can I have a web server that's not going to get taken away? What's the best software programs to use to talk to other people if we're working as a team? Okay, who can I contact that might help? And so it just took a long time. It took about 10 months of working on this before I was able to put it online, so it could become live, and so there was enough material on there that it would be worth looking at. So right now, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, you have put it together so very well,
down to the logo and all.
Yes, and it was like I was telling you earlier, before we went live, Brant and Hanz, was that me and a friend, we put some of our money together and we bought a couple of domain names, and we did this back, I guess, I'd say it was back in May. And then, like, I had to learn so much. I had to get web hosting, and we use HostGator, I believe is the company. And it took me, like, I have no knowledge of this sort of thing. I had to learn a little bit about WordPress, how to get it on there, how to get the website up and running. And we managed to get my friend's website up and running. It went live maybe about 6 or 7 weeks ago, but he hasn't had a lot of time to do anything with it. And I've still got my domain name yet. I haven't done anything with it yet. I need to fool with it and try to get it running. But I wanted to show here, like, all the different categories that you have. You have white well-being right here with these different resources. The awareness, let's see what that says. Awareness of anti-white propaganda. Let's see what we got here. A 4-part series by John Malt, Propaganda Part 1, the introduction.
Oh, did that open up in a different tab on your machine?
Oh, it did. Yeah, it did.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Let me see if I can share this tab real quick.
I know what's on the page, but nobody else knows what's on the page.
Yeah, let me see if I can switch these real quick. Present. You'll have to give me just a second. I don't do this all that often. Let me stop. Let me pull it back up. Sorry about this, guys.
No, it's a pain in the butt doing this stuff, I know.
It's worth it, though. Okay, let's see. I want to show the tab and School of the West, Education for White Wellbeing. That's what I want to show. No, wait. There it is. Okay. Is it sharing now? Does it work now? Okay. Yeah, this is the tab that I just clicked on. The achieving the awareness of anti-white propaganda. See, there's all these little. Are these videos here, by the way?
Yeah, those are videos. Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah.
There's thing about Devin Stack there. I see how boomers were. Yeah, I've seen that video actually before a few years ago.
Yeah, so I sent an email to Devin about a year ago or so talking about using his stuff, and he says he's good with that. I can pull his stuff off of YouTube. I can't pull his stuff directly off of Odyssey because he has a lot of cussing in there. So I have to go through. There's some things that I still want to use, but I have to go through and edit that so it's it can be viewable by families. So this page right here, it's just about that's just the primary page for quote white well-being right now. That'll be redone again in 5 or 6 months with newer content.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that's really the only reason I wanted to get a website was to be able to for it to host my videos in case I ever get taken off of YouTube or whatever. And I'm not quite sure how you go about that yet. I don't know is it a plugin? Is that what you use to the tool to host videos on your website or
to host your videos? It's going to depend. It's going to depend more on your web server, the company that's hosting your service. Yeah. Because videos are going to take up so much space and it may slow down your site. Now, as far as this goes with you don't need a plugin. Elementor, or I should say this, Elementor is what I use for that because that's what you see is what you get sort of plugin. So you don't have to do it on the back end. And then there's little widgets that make it very easy once you figure them out, how you can link to either internal videos or external videos.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I didn't mean to get off on that tangent. I wanted to show you all the history and culture thing, the Viking history particularly. Let me see if I can pull that up. That's Hans's contribution to to Brant's website here. Let me see if I can share it. Give me just a second. Microsoft Edge tab.
I figured it was time to show the world that Vikings didn't wear this leather, sci-fi biker armor.
Yeah. Let me see if I can scroll down here. This is Hans, like I said, Hans's contribution. He has his series of Vikings for white well-being, his series of videos. You said it's been almost 2 years ago that you started this project, right?
Like on just over a week from now, it's the second birthday of the first episode. So there you go.
Yeah. So the first one was A Fury is Born, Charlemagne, that evil bastard. Yes. His murder of the 4,000 or 4,500 Saxons.
The numbers aren't precise, but it's
it was there. In the thousands. Yeah, absolutely.
In the 4,000s at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I despise Charlemagne, to be honest. But yeah, look at this series here. I mean, and you can watch the videos here. See.
Yep.
And let's see. There, I looked at this last night too. There's Hans himself, and there's his little write-up about himself. See, I mean, this is such outstanding work, Brant. Like I remember, it's probably been over a year ago that I first came across this website of yours, and you've done such a wonderful job with it. I'm so impressed by your work here. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And maybe real quick, what I also appreciate about working with you, Brant, is when I come to you, I vaguely remember that when I came to you first, then I presented it. I wanted to do this series. I wanted to know from you what was important to be part of the history that I share. I personally, I try to keep it as neutral. I try to keep it neutral. There is no politics in it. There is nothing religious in there. If religion is attached to the history of what I'm talking about, then it's going to be there. But it is not outright my opinion of the of this or that way of thinking or way of living. It happened. It appears in the video, and as Brandon said to me, it's like, if it happened, then you put it in there, and that be that. And it has to be said, even in the white positive sphere, I find that it is still a little bit not necessarily rare, but I hope that is going to be the overarching attitude towards the history, instead of having all these little groups trying to put in their little preferred narratives in there and what have you. So School of the West tries to avoid that, and for that, I really thank you. That's how it should be.
Yeah, thank you, Hans. I totally agree with that. That was another issue that I had with public schooling, is that sometimes you had outright lies and sometimes you had lies of omission, and you had material that's always being massaged. And I don't support specifically a pagan, and I don't support specifically Christian, and I don't support specifically agnostic, and I don't support specifically atheist. It's hard for me to say. I support all of that if it supports white well-being, and all of that is welcome, and all of that plays a part in the history of our people. And if someone is an adherent to any one of those religions or philosophies, that's perfectly fine, as long as you're not using that to attack other people. And if Charlemagne was trying to bring Christianity into Europe and he murdered a bunch of people, well, he actually did that. We need to know why he did that. We need to stop playing games and lying and covering up things and taking part in propaganda, and start to use critical thinking and understand what the hell happened, so we can understand what's happening right now. So that's my speech on that.
And it might be worth adding, given that we mentioned that specific figure, for those who have never checked it, the first episode, and maybe it's the second, there's going to be links with figures that are still alive today, that go all the way back to, that come from his dynasty. So make of that what you will, and you'll find them everywhere, not just in Europe. Might be a worthy teaser if you want to know a bit more about what's been going on all this time to our people.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here browsing through the different. Let me show y'all something else here. Show the audience.
Right. So what Southern was just showing right there was from the section for the self-sufficiency. So that section is very early in its infancy, and that will get filled out over time with the knowledge of how to be self-sufficient to a certain degree, how to work on your own vehicles, how to work on things around the house, how to build things for yourselves, how to raise your own food, how to catch your food, all of these sorts of things that our people used to know how to do, that people that live in cities or people that live in modern societies have forgotten all these things.
Exactly.
So we become more and more reliant on other people to do these things for us.
Absolutely. Let me see here. Let me share it. See, I mean, he's got all these different entries here. The food production, the self-sufficiency. He had one of my gardening videos and a video where I was just doing some catfishing with some chicken livers. He's got fitness and health here. That's something I'd like to maybe be able to contribute a little bit to in the future. Some working out. Let me see. I think it will. Is it sharing this particular page here? The general health one? Or
I can see it.
Is it got the lady doing the gymnastic pose?
Oh no, I can't.
No,
see
it's
that.
It's on another tab, because these are all opening in different tabs.
Yeah, I see that. I was just making sure. I'll have to figure out a way, if there's a way possible to do this more efficiently.
Or maybe, well, I'm not sure. Maybe to keep it for a bit later in the video or in the stream, so to say. Brant, you also remarked on this, and you brought it up to me, is that this is not solely for people from the USA, not solely for people from North America, and not solely for English-speaking people. That is, or at least School of the West is going to work towards it being available for everyone, whether you speak Norse, Austrian,
whether you're
Spanish,
in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, wherever it may be. This is for everybody.
Yeah. So I guess this is a place where I could say a couple things. So besides the information that's on the website, I'm also teaching some classes live on Fridays, and I'm eventually going to turn that material into a series, like a white well-being series. It's going to be about psychology, and then it's going to be some stuff about European history for kids. So what I'm putting on there right now for the children is just touching on the history of ancient Greece, ancient Rome, stories of Beowulf, King Arthur, medieval times, castles, that sort of stuff. Then I'm also teaching them about what is anti-white propaganda. Then we're going to learn a game. Is it anti-white or is it all right? And they can play that with their parents. And I'm also teaching them a little bit about the different countries of Europe, culture, languages, food, etc. And then I'm also doing a little bit of work on the countries that we went to, that we settled: America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Rhodesia, and South Africa. Because what Jason talks about is, it's us in South Africa, it's us in Belgium, it's us in America. Like we're one family, we're all over the place, and that's how you need to think about it. Then I'm also doing a separate series for teens that's about, it's heavily into the anti-white propaganda, and then it goes into government corruption, how you get individual well-being from group well-being, the problems that we've had with individualism and anti-whiteism and feminism, why that started and how it continues to go. Mean pathogens, mean curatives. How do you handle the anti-whites when you get in an argument with them, or they're trying to label you? And then I also go into a little bit of history on Churchill and Roosevelt, as bad examples of what not to do when you're a leader, and the bad ramifications of what happens decades later from that. And then I also talk about good examples of leadership. Talk about Patton and Lindbergh, and then also Joan of Arc and Queen Elizabeth I. So the white well-being information, the series that I'm teaching, it's kind of a smorgasbord of a lot of different history and psychology that's aimed for specific age groups. And that's what that little sign up information text boxes were on that home page. And I'm about 45% of the way through that right now, and I'll end that right before Christmas this time. And like I said, a lot of that material is going to go into a series that I'll make into a white well-being series that will go on that white well-being page. And then some of the stuff will be history. I'll put on the history page. I've also got a guy who's working on Southern history. He was an ex high school teacher, and I just grabbed a whole bunch of videos from him, and that will slowly be put on the website when that's ready. He's starting with the American Revolution, and then that will go into the War for Southern Independence. I've also started working on some work with a guy from South Africa that I'm sure some people know. He's extremely busy. So I want to do a history of South Africa and Rhodesia, and go up to modern times, talk about what happened with apartheid, talk about what happened with the Rhodesian Declaration of Independence, the sanctions, anti-whiteism, who were the actors inside the countries, who were the actors outside the countries to destroy what the governments were at that time. What were the problems inherent from the very, very beginning that were never taken care of between the blacks and the whites? Problems that continue to arise. If you never take care of the problems, they're there the whole time. So I'm using those Southern African countries as an example of what happened to us and what can happen to us in our other countries if we don't take steps to stop that.
Yeah.
So there's stuff in the background that's in the works that it'll be a while before it shows up on the website.
Oh yeah, I understand. I was going to say I was planning on making a video myself. It might be a couple of months before I get it done, but there is a major Civil War battlefield not too terribly far from where I live currently, and the Battle of Chickamauga, and they have a really nice museum there that's got all these. They've got replicas of like all the different types of arms and guns that were used in the Civil War, and they've got a lot of the authentic cannons that the North and the South use. It's a beautiful park. It's a really pretty place. I went there the summer before last to check it out for the first time, but I'd actually like to make a video, and if it was useful for your website, you could feel free absolutely to use it regarding the war for Southern independence, like you said, Brant. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think that the more different opinions and resource materials that people have to learn about something, the better feel they can get for it. Not just necessarily material coming from one point of view, but from different points of view.
Yeah,
and it's also
exactly.
valuable to be there. And if you can't be there, then the next best thing is someone who is actually there at that battlefield, talking about it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful park. They've got huge oak trees. It was a pretty destructive battle. It was. They even have a documentary, like I said, the museum there. They have a short documentary that's about 30 minutes that they play. It's about the events of the war, like the movements that the different regiments made and stuff. It's an interesting place. It's beautiful. I liked it. Um, but anyways, yeah, I'm just like I said, I'm just really impressed with all the work that you have done, Brant. This is something that is much needed. I really love your website. It's so it's so concise and professional looking. It's beautiful.
I'm glad you like it. I didn't want it to have a whole bunch of bells and whistles and things on there. Just like some basics, not too hard to navigate, and
It's
some
easy to
nice,
navigate.
yeah, some nice images. I'm like, that's it. I don't want to have a lot of fancy things on there.
Oh, I mean, it's just so it's you've done so much work on it. I'm so impressed with it. Absolutely. Guys in the chat, I put the link to his website. Um, let's see. I'll put it again. I've also got it in the description box, along with Hans's YouTube channel. I've got the links to those in the description box under the title of this stream, and that's the link in the chat. I if you know any parents, or if even if you don't have children, perhaps you have a niece or a nephew, and perhaps your brother or your sister are wanting to homeschool them. Well, this is a source you can use. Show them this website. Absolutely, you know.
And there is also a great potential that School of the West has for young families, but anyone really, that if they go to School of the West and they engage with the material that is there might be opportunities in the future that will rise where, if it becomes more commonplace and more well known, the people can connect over School of the West. This can bridge internationally, and I think in and of itself that can also overcome a lot of let's say, I do not want to use it in a bad way, but in this case, like a certain nationalist tendencies. I've seen it over the years where a lot of well-meaning people, they say it's like my country only, and the rest of Europe or whatever it's going to be can burn for all I care. I think that School of the West can bridge this, and because the one of my favorite parts, it's in history and culture section, I believe. Meet your people. I mean, it's I got emotional watching those. I went through all of them, even though they're meant for the youngest. It's like I went through all of them. It really made me emotional because it it wakes something up in our people. A realization is that, hey, it's that you're there's quite a few of us, and we have many different ways how we express our biospirit, and that is something that we can appreciate in each other, rather
Yes.
than if you politicize it, it usually turns into animosity. It's one of the main reasons also how anti-whites have been managing us, truly managing us like cattle, if you will. And we can, through this is one of the ways to overcome that, as I see it. So for that as well, to the guys who made that, well done. It's like
It was.
excellent.
It was
Yeah.
outstanding.
Yeah, Lovely Porridge started that. He did his
Yes.
first one about Australia, and then he started doing a few more. And then I did the one on the United States because I just knew more about that than porridge. And I was also just using some of the information from the white well-being class that I was teaching at the time to put that on there. I've had a few people from different countries come forward over the past couple of years and say, hey, I want to do this on a certain country or whatever. And I says, okay, go ahead and do it. But then I don't hear back from them. So I did want to say that if people have a specialty either in some sort of academic knowledge, or they have stories that they want to read out, or if they're going to be at a battlefield like Southern is going to be at, or they put together their own information that they want to share, they want to have do cooking videos or building a chicken coop or some farming or whatever the heck it is in the self-sufficiency section, I can use that stuff on the site. So this isn't just something that people can look at and never interact with. if someone really wants to be a creator, or they want to donate the time, put in the time, and put something on here, then I'm perfectly willing to do that. And that's what most of this site is. It's like stuff from Southern and from Hanz and from myself and from other people. Lovely Porridge, it did the Meet the People. He's down in Australia. So it's our people coming together and working together to put this together. I just had a vision of one place that has the correct and the proper foundation for our children, and it also tries to meet as many needs as possible.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of people donating from wherever they are on the planet.
And see, Brant, he took my 2 videos and, he edited them for content, because I have to admit, I've got a pretty foul mouth sometimes. I don't think children should really be listening to my videos, because like I said, I probably should have had my parents stick a bar of soap more in my mouth more often when I was a child. But he edited those parts out, and this is important. This is something that our people can use. It's just a brilliant idea that you had, Brant. I'm so very impressed with it.
I mean, I also appreciate that if you put your mind to it and a bit of energy into it, moves can be made, right? Is School of the West not also a beacon of that in and of itself? And look at it. Brand started this, and people, some show up and then they don't see things through, and that is unfortunate. But those who do, well, they leave an imprint behind, for the better. And maybe it's worth adding in there that if perhaps School of the West isn't for you, you at least can see that a project for white well-being, such as School of the West, has manifested. It's there, and it's here to stay, right? So
yeah,
it's not all doom and gloom either. There is good stuff happening. You can either join this and definitely feel encouraged to start something on your own as well, if you have to, if that is how you want to do it, however that is going to manifest. Because over the years we've seen, you know what? No, actually, I'm going to keep it there. I think that is a positive and healthy message to bear in mind for every one of us. Good things can manifest. They can become beacons, and a lot of people will be helped with it. And that is that. What more do you need? Seriously.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's see. We're approaching an hour and a half. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Is there anything that I have forgotten, Brant? Anything else I need to show? Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I thought we were going to trade recipes and talk about fall fashions.
Oh man, yeah,
hairstyles.
you sent me that in the email, and I didn't understand the context really, and I was like, well, man, I've never been much of a quiche fan, but I'm more of a shepherd's pie kind of guy myself. But as far as fall fashions go, maybe I can get my woman on here. Maybe she can give you some more knowledge about that.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I'm full of crap a lot of the time. You got to keep it lighthearted.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I guess the one thing that I would say is that if people get depressed, just realize that there's people working on your behalf, and there might be a lot of work going on behind the scenes that you're not even aware of. And there's a lot of people that are just, they're this close to waking up and to realizing what's going on, and to embracing white well-being. And projects like mine and projects that other people have started, they're going to grow over time, and we don't know how big they're going to become, or when it's like School of the West. Someday it's going to be an actual school. It's going to be a physical structure, and then it'll be 2, and then it'll be 3. It'll grow, and then we can once again have the type of societies that we want and that we deserve and that we can pass down to our children, that used to be passed down to us before it all got corrupted by outside influences. And the other thing that's in our favor is we have the truth on our side, and it sounds silly to say, but we also have the internet on our side, which just means we have the ability to communicate with each other and to discuss things with each other, and to say, hey, this thing over here coming from the mainstream media, that's bullcrap. And now we can all discuss it and say, yep, that's bullcrap. Where before we weren't able to do that. So the anti-white regimes had a huge lock with their propaganda on our populations. They don't have that lock on us anymore.
Yeah.
We have a lot of insane anti-whites we have to deal with, and we're learning how to deal with them. But while all this other bullcrap is going on, we can build these productive things for ourselves, like as a parallel society, a parallel
Yes.
economy, parallel education, etc.
Yeah, that's something that the Woodlander has talked about, the creation of these sort of parallel economies, or like a parallel financial system. That's something I'm really interested in, because, I think things are deteriorating. I mean, it's obvious to see society is rapidly deteriorating. And that's why I like the Woodlander's message too, is because, I think we all should be trying to live rurally, like how you talked earlier, like how you were in London, just how unnatural, just how chaotic everything was. But, we got to try to shield ourselves to the best of our abilities from what I would just call the acceleration of the decline, you could say. Just a way to try to shield ourselves. And what you have here is something that can be used to, it's a valuable resource, it's something that will try to, and that's what I like about the website too, is that it is trying to instill a sense of pride in young people of their race. That's something I think that's been lost, especially the last 3 decades, definitely. Oh,
Yeah.
Don't get choked up.
I'm trying.
I've got a cold right now, kinda. That's why my voice. I'm talking through my nose. It sounds like.
Well, I do not know if it's worth bringing this up, but also over the last, let's say, like you said, the last 30 years or so, things being lost. I see a correlation there in that the more that gets lost, it's also the same time that the more people start waiting. Yeah, they aren't proactive so much as they should, perhaps. They wait for some savior or some politician, who acts as a savior, to go solve it all on their own. There is uh, I hope that project as these also show people that it's about your individual, like you as a person must do something. You can observe how terrible it is, but that should be your motivator. If you there is even a philosopher that I've started reading recently, Arthur Schopenhauer, from a German
Yeah.
philosopher.
Yes.
He even says that if you feel depressed, that is actually a signal that you give, that your subconscious, I suppose, gives to yourself to say you need to act. You
Yeah.
feel miserable, so you will feel motivated to get out of that misery. And that's what
That's a
these
great
projects
point.
are for. It should give you the energy to work your way up to something good.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I suppose, well, actually, it's no longer unfortunate, because people used to think that they were the only ones, right? And as Brant says, like, no, you're not. You see others do it too. They climb their way out of, all these personal ailments that they come from, and get on top of them, and they start building, they start improving, not only themselves, but they help others. They lay a path for others as well. So please join that. When that torch is held out towards you, light your own torch with that fire.
Exactly.
Promethean, if you will. Do the Promethean
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, I like what Mr. McCain just said. He said that, yes, we must be proactive. It's better to be proactive than reactive, Let's see.
Absolutely, because if you're reactive, you can be controlled.
Yeah, and you're not seizing the initiative if you're reactive, If you are being proactive, you are dictating the initiative. You are forcing, while reaction is just you're constantly kept on your toes, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
I'm just looking back through the chat. There was something a second ago, well, a few minutes ago actually, that I seen. Promethean Promulgation asked, "What's a good way to get involved?" I don't know. I guess they're perhaps asking about your website, Brant. That's what I would think. I think this is the only comment I've seen in this this guest ask?
Or it might be about sharing recipes. You could get involved with that. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah.
No, on the bottom of every page on the website is the email there. It's contact@schoolofthewest.world. You'll see that on every page. So you can just click on that, and it'll either open up, or you can just copy and paste that into your email program.
Yeah, and that'll be how to contact you, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, and also I wanted to say something, piggyback on what Hans said there about being proactive. I've always been a bitching and moaning, pedantic, autistic sort of person, like complaining about everything that's wrong. But so much stuff has become wrong and insane and anti-white now, that in order for me to stay sane and not become like a serial killer or whatever, I had to do something that was, something that I could control, something that was positive. So it doesn't matter how insane things get, doesn't matter. Everything can go completely to shit out there, but I'm going to control what I'm doing here, and I'm going to make something positive for our people.
Yes.
And the people that help out are going to be part of that process. So anti-whites are not going to control what I'm doing. They can, tear things all to hell, but you guys, go do that. Things are going to fall apart. Okay. Good luck, guys. And
yeah, absolutely.
Stay on the path.
Let's see. Finn Wraith asked, can we suggest ideas to add to the website?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Shoot them in the chat. Let's see. We've been going for an hour and 35. I like to take the last few minutes of a stream and ask the audience, do y'all have any questions? Any questions at all? Fire away for Brant or Hanz or myself. Feel free to line them up. Feel free.
Actually, I might have a suggestion out for everyone that is listening now, and if they know people, I would be personally interested in people that I can trust, people who are trustworthy and who do not mind investing some of their time and energy in the Viking series with me. I want to create more episodes, but I have been busy with other projects also for White Wellbeing, but I cannot speak about them yet. That will come in the future. But in the meantime, it would be helpful for me if I had a few who would show up and that I can talk with. We exchange some information, build up a bit of trust, and hopefully then I can ramp up, the amount of episodes, but also increase the quality and maybe even the research for those who are interested into that. But right now it's a one-man army situation, and that's all fine and well. But I think it's given that I'm going to focus on other things in life, some of it forced, some of it necessary, I still want to create this. I still want to make this series. So anyone that is willing to help, feel free to reach out to me. You can go to my channel and leave it in the comment section there, and I should make a habit of leaving my email, so I'll try to remember to always leave that underneath my videos too. Oh, that's okay that I mentioned that.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was going to say right now to everyone in the audience, I'm putting the link to Hans's channel in the chat.
I appreciate it.
That is where you can find Hanz there. And once again, I will put the link to Brant's website, of course, in the chat. Give me just a second. Hey, how you doing, Bormagni? I can't roll my R's worth a damn.
Hey, Bor.
And here is Brant's website. I haven't really seen, let's see, a suggestion for from Barry R. McCain to the website, languages, folk, pre-Christian spirituality. Yes, these are all important facets of our people's history. Here's another one. Sean asks, will courses on how to butcher and process animals be available in the self-sufficient tab? Yeah, we could do that in the future, definitely.
Yeah, if someone
something.
makes it, it'll be available. Yeah.
We need to find us a good hunter. I'm not much of a hunter myself. I'm more of a fisherman.
I have known a hunter, but he is very busy with his farm right now. If I get a hold on him, I might be able to. I might be able to ask him. We'll see. No promises.
That would be. Are you talking about Harold by chance?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Harold's a good hunter. I've seen some of his old videos on YouTube. I'd say he's busy with his wife and the farm and
Yeah.
everything. I like Harold. I like Harold a lot. I haven't
He
talked to him in a long time.
just real quick, he's a true hero. He got a girl out of that recent war zone that
Yeah,
everyone has been hearing about. Not even kidding. He got her
yeah,
out of there and made
yeah,
her his own.
yeah. I know he.
All right.
The last time I spoke to him, which was probably like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, it may have been that long,
It's been
but
a while. Yeah.
he told me he had just gotten married to a Ukrainian lady. He had found him a lady
Absolutely.
from Ukraine. That's awesome. Um, is there any final remarks? Either one of you two got any last remarks you want to throw out there?
Do you want to say something, Hans?
Well, I for one, I'm very thankful that as I already mentioned, perhaps, but I'll say it again. Very thankful that you started this project. I'm gonna throw out a thank you to everyone who has partaken in School of the West and have added something for our young, but actually, really for all of us. Doesn't really matter which, how old or how young you are, and I'm gonna also thank you everyone for coming by. It's really nice. Always appreciate that. Anything else? I'm going to keep putting out the Viking series. Depends a bit on personal matters, how often I can do that, and to what extent. Any help will be welcome there. So if you hear this and you want to reach out to me, you're always welcome to. And yeah, other than that, it's been good being here. And you all have a good one then.
Yeah, glad you came on, Hans. And Brant, like I said, this is your stream. You got any final remarks? Any last words?
Any last words? Sounds like you're
I
about
know
to
that sounds ominous, doesn't it? I shouldn't have phrased it like
die.
that.
You should do that. You should always say it that way. Yeah, I want to thank Hans for his work on the School of the West and the work that he's doing outside of that. And I want to thank you, Southern Nordic, for having me on the show. And I enjoy your streams. I've found that over time, of all the different content creators, there is a small handful that I enjoy listening to over and over, and you guys are two of them. Because, to use a naughty word here, you guys are zero bullshit. There's a lot of people out there that they kind of incorporate, helping the white race and a little bit of bullshit because they're trying to run a business, or they want to sell something, or they want to keep a certain amount of views or whatever. But you guys don't do any of that. And I try not to do any of that as well, because that's just not how my personality is set up. So I appreciate guys like you. I appreciate people that are helping with the School of the West website, and the kids that come to class, and the parents that sign them up, and the parents that give me feedback on the classes, and people that also write to me, either give me ideas or they have questions. Sometimes there's something I can refer to them on the site to help them out. Sometimes I can't, and I will refer them to a website that prints books, or it has a different type of education, or it has worksheets or something like that they can use. So it's all working. It just takes time. We're at a big disadvantage when we look at our anti-white overlords, because they have all the money and the power and the guns and the media. They have everything. But we do have the truth on our side, and we have the people with integrity on our side. So it's small right now, but it's just like a big train that's just barely starting to move right now. It looks imperceptible, but it's going to be picking up speed. And we just have to stay positive and keep building what we need to build.
Absolutely. Let me reply to something here. Anyways, yeah, and I want to thank you both again so much for coming on here. I've really enjoyed this. The audience has really enjoyed it, and I have to say, I think this is one of the better streams that I've put together. Thanks to you two, absolutely. I mean, y'all have carried the show, and this is heartwarming to me. Because I mean, I don't lie. Sometimes I get discouraged with things. Sometimes I get aggravated and all that. But seeing stuff like this, concrete effort, is what it's about. Really,
Absolutely.
talk is cheap. And there's a lot of talk, but to actually do something, actions matter, absolutely. But anyways, guys, as I said earlier, I want to thank you again so much. It was great, and hopefully we could revisit this at some time here in the future. If you're interested, Brant. I hope this makes more people aware of your website and your efforts, because it is much needed. It is much needed. There is a dire need for this. Absolutely. But anyways, audience, I want to thank everybody that showed up. I will once again post the link to his website, which is right there in the chat. And I'll post Hans's again as well, his YouTube channel. Try to make it grow, get him, because he deserves more views here.
Well, maybe quickly on that. I think I'm thinking about changing. I've mentioned this on my own channel before as well, to other places. So on YouTube, I'll be there for a while yet. But the shadow banning is it's just insane.
Yeah.
And I know that there are far more people following me than is allowed to be let on. I just wanted to share that. So yeah, change is on the way for me as well. But just wanted to share that real quick.
Are you on Odyssey by chance? There's Hans's YouTube channel, by the way.
I'm working on that, but I'm not going to say that yet. I have still to decide what I'm really going to go with. So I'm making a lot of tryouts right now. But appreciate you mentioning that. I also don't want to disrupt anything, but I also see one last question in the chat from Eternal Extrapolations. Do we take that one, or are we going to close off?
Oh, no, go ahead. I tried to address it a second ago, because he does bring up a point. Speaking of being negative while making a syllabus as productive and useful, is there not so much rot within our own society that it is like trying to fill a sieve with water? I can understand this sentiment, but we have to raise the next generation that will resist, you could say. But anyway, I'll let you. That's what I replied. What did you have to say, Hans? Did you have anything to add? Or Brant, you as well?
I don't know if I totally understand the question, but here's the deal. When you're raising kids, you can't just let them run around and be wild animals and let them, quote, figure things out by themselves. You have to figure out, what do you want them to learn? What do you want their foundation to be? How do you want them to behave? What type of history and skills and knowledge do you want them to have? And then you need to go about doing that. Now, if you're going to do that with more than 2 or 3 kids, you need to have a syllabus, because you need to, from an education point of view, you need to present that to the parents to say, look, this is what I intend to teach the kids. Or if you sign them up for this, this is what they're going to learn. The syllabus is just a list of things they're going to learn. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It'd be like if you go to a restaurant, the syllabus is like the menu. You're looking at what's there. You don't need to say, well, don't waste time making a menu. Just bring food out. Well, the syllabus is just a list. So yeah, I may not understand the question, but as for making a syllabus for a course for education, yeah, it's appropriate, and it's what's expected.
Yeah, we got to be positive sometimes. It's easy to get down to feeling negative. I find myself in that boat sometimes, but we have to be positive. We have to act, and we have to go on. That's really all you can do.
Yeah, and let me say this as well. So a syllabus, it's just like a tool. The internet is a tool. The TV is a tool. A hammer is a tool. You can pick up a hammer and smack someone in the head, or you can build a house with it. It's just a tool. So if you have the tools in the right hands, if you have the tools in the hands that are trying to help you, that's the thing you want to do. You can have a scalpel, in the hands of a surgeon or in a murderer. We need to get this scalpel away from the murderers and put them in the hands of the surgeons. So from my point of view, if I'm just talking about something I'm going to be teaching, it's part of my job in communicating to the parents to give them a syllabus. and say,
Exactly.
this is what's going to be taught. Because some parents are going to say, well, I disagree with this, or I don't want this, or I want more of this. It's just a form of communication and holding the teachers accountable and the schools accountable for what they're teaching.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, I want to thank y'all again, and thank everybody in the audience. Check out these guys' work. Check out Brant's website, School of the West. Check out Hans's YouTube channel. And I want to thank y'all again, and I hope y'all have a good day. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Thank you again, Brant. I appreciate you both.
Bye,
Y'all
guys.
have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, do you have something to add?
Me?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just waving.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Looks like I have my hand up.
We're still live. Okay, bye, guys. We'll
All right,
shut
bye.
it down now. Bye-bye.
Okay.